This is our July or June issue of our SIGVE speaker series. We have a very special guest this evening, and while I'm introducing Henny, maybe folks could put their own. They don't have to put their real life name in, but just maybe shout out what they do for a living. That way, that'll give Henny a little idea as to what his audience is. That's always a helpful thing. So maybe you could throw out what your role is in the real world. Feel free. Um, Again, welcome everyone, and thanks for coming tonight. It's a pretty hot one here in the Northeast. My guest tonight is Henny Zimer, or Zimer. I'll let Jeff tell us which one that is. But Jeff is a teacher of middle school gifted and talented students living in the Big Sky country. He's a lifelong learner with a fascination for emerging technologies. Jeff says that applications found in environments like blogs, wiki spaces, moves, social networks, and read-write web tools have changed the way we need to teach our students. Couldn't agree more. Jeff believes that teachers are no longer the transfers of information, but the vehicle to teaching children how to learn in a world where anytime, anywhere learning has become the norm. Jeff writes a blog motivated by his desire to be a better teacher and says it has made him a better learner. Really nice quotes. And Jeff has also done quite a bit of work with Minecraft, which is something we've been looking at quite a bit these days, and Quest Atlantis. So Jeff can tell us about his work in both of those platforms. So with that, I want to welcome Jeff and ask him to kind of give us his educational journey to being here and being among us. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Hear you fine. Sounds good.
Okay, good. I took about all the different virtual places I work and just some of my experience. I just threw the link in there. This kind of worked out good for me because I'm actually doing a workshop on virtual worlds on Thursday, so this will kind of get me back into that mode of teaching about virtual worlds. I got I guess my introduction to virtual worlds or virtual environments happened a couple of years ago when I was getting my master's in integrating technology in the classroom, and in my last class, my last instructor said that she had office hours in Second Life, and that kind of intrigued me because I didn't even know what that meant, having office hours in something called Second Life, and I had no idea even what it was. And this was like, God, it's
I'm busy, Mayor.
Over 4 years ago now. But I had an old kind of a crappy computer back then, and I tried to get into Second Life, and I didn't have. I had like 228 bytes of RAM, or just the minimum amount, and I had a terrible graphics card. But I got in, I was able to kind of move around it, but I couldn't do it right. But then I figured out how to get more RAM and how to get a better video card. So I was figuring out all these other things about my computer and about technology when I was trying to figure out how to get Second Life working. But then I got Second Life working, and it was so immersive to me. And when I first got in, I thought, oh my God, this is going to change the way we do everything, because I was talking to people in all these different places, and what was kind of cool about it is I learned some stuff when I was getting my master's, but when I started talking to people in Second Life and meeting people in Second Life, I learned way more from them than I did in all my coursework and all the class. I was kind of like on the cutting edge, and they knew about Twitter and they knew about Facebook kind of before all that stuff was getting big, and they knew about Digo and social bookmarking, and they would turn me on to things that like I had no idea about. But God, I would learn, and the learning here to me was just incredible, and how much I learned in Second Life. And Second Life kind of led me to the other virtual worlds. I've done some work in Quest Atlantis, and I was hooked up to Quest Atlantis by some Australian friends of mine, and it was kind of cool because I met a lot of Australians in Second Life, because I'm kind of an early riser. So I'd like, especially when I was working on my master's, I'd get up at like 5 to do some of my coursework, and 5 o'clock here in Montana is like tonight in Australia. So it's like there was all these Australians online and building. There was I don't know if you know who Joe K is, but she's been kind of a mentor to me. She does she's doing stuff with my students, and I do some stuff in Minecraft. Another thing that I got hooked up by Joe K, and then a guy named Dean Groom, whose name is Slammed. His name is Dean Groom. I don't know how to pronounce his last name in Second Life. It's Abia or Abby or something like that. But he and I have become real close. And he's actually coming to Montana. I've met him a couple of times in real life, and in that link, there's like a video I made a couple of years ago about my experiences with ISTE and with virtual worlds and meeting people face to face that I only met like in Second Life or on Twitter and places like that. So massively, Minecraft is something else I've kind of been into because of my connection to Joe K and to Dean Groom. A couple of years ago, I got hooked into World of Warcraft, and I got in with cognitive dissonance, and I have a level 85 and a level 70 dwarf, and I don't do too much of that. I'm a father, and I try to bike race, and I do some other things too. So I get pretty busy. I've done some camps in Jocadia Grid for kids. I've done several camps in the summer in Quest Atlantis. Quest Atlantis has been a part of my curriculum for the last couple of years. People. I think some people think who aren't familiar with it. They think, oh, you're just going to get them into a computer game and then just leave there. I mean, you really need to learn how to use Quest Atlantis as a tool. It isn't something you just say, here, you go play Quest Atlantis, I'm going to leave you alone. You really have to work with them. So there's a lot more involved in utilizing Quest Atlantis to teach. And I don't know if I'm talking way too much or if you have more questions for me, Spiff, or should I just keep babbling?
No, it's great. While you mentioned though that I'm fascinated. You had mentioned that it's not just something you put the kids on the computer and let them go. It really requires some teacher dedication to the program. Do you think that's where virtual environments may get hung up with a lot of teachers? Is the fact that there is a learning curve with teachers?
Yeah, I way think that's what it is. I think teachers don't have the time, and they if they don't see the value in it right away, they won't get into it. And the learning curve for Quest Atlantis and actually incorporating in your classroom is very, very steep. And I think a lot of teachers initially get involved with it and then they give up. I'm actually a buoy, what's called a trainer. And I've trained one group of some Montana teachers, but when you get to that point where you're doing the paperwork and you have to do the permission slips, and then there's the teacher side of the teacher toolkit in Quest Atlantis, and there's all these, and then enrolling students, and then figuring out how to get the curriculum to them, because there's just a tremendous amount of curriculum in there, and figuring out which curriculum is right. And to be effective, I mean, you have to go through and do all the curriculum yourself. So, and it isn't like somebody's gonna pay you to do it. So it's something that I did on my own time because it was engaging and enjoyable to me. And I like I said, at that point, I was really immersed in the virtual worlds. I was like, man, I'm talking to people all over the world in this place, and I can show my kids how to do the same thing. And when you do it with kids, the kids are the same way, but you try to get a teacher to do it, and you just run into a lot of roadblocks. And that's another thing about virtual worlds to me. I mean, Montana is really kind of isolated. I mean, I'm out here in the middle of nowhere, so there isn't a lot of teachers that are kind of into this stuff. But it's kind of cool because I can find teachers. I can find Bronwyn Stevie, and I can find Angela in Tasmania, and people that are into this, and I can talk to them and I can ask them questions about it. And it just, to me, Second Life is just a real cool version of a type of social media. It's and I'm going to probably touch on this a lot. All these tools connect me to other people, and I don't know how much you guys know about it, and I imagine you all know a lot of this stuff already because you're here, about what connectivism is and our ability. It isn't to me about the fact that I have a cartoon that looks like a pizza chef. It's the fact that I'm sitting here and I'm talking to people in all different places in the world, and I'm learning from you, and I can learn from you. and you can learn from me, and we can share people that are kind of out there a little bit. And to me, that's the power of this, that I think and our kids get it. They get that they can learn from people in different places. I just don't know that teachers get that yet. I don't know if that's the case in other places, but I think it's the case here in Montana.
We're getting quite a few comments in our back channeling, and one of them had mentioned that, and one of them asked about administration. Someone had asked whether, are you the only teacher in your district that is using virtual environments, and what about administration? Are they on board? Do they think you're the Mad Hatter?
I'm the only teacher in my state using Quest Atlantis. So I've had administrators, and I did a blog post about it, and I could probably go find it. But I had an administrator come in, and the kids are so engaged, and then you'll see them working together, and they'll say, "How do you do this?" And I don't think they really know. I don't think they understand what's happening. That my kids are interacting with the classroom of kids in North Carolina and talking and asking them where do I find Dr. Frank, or to write to get information, or to get some details about my 5-paragraph essay, to whether or not, and the curriculum is real rich, especially in that some of the quests aren't as good as some of the others. I use there's one called Ingolstadt, where they have to pick a side and write a persuasive essay, and it's a real cool mission. But the administrators come in like, oh my God, these kids are just engaged. And then I'll explain what they're doing, and they'll say, oh, cool. And then they'll go to somebody else's room. I've offered to do trainings, and like I said, I did some trainings, and I'm doing just a virtual environments thing on Thursday for our local instructional technology thing. I'm going to do it on both. I'm going to do a 3-hour workshop on virtual environments and another one on wikis and how to use wikis in the classroom. But I think the fact that the learning curve is steep, and I think that it's hard to get teachers. And I have a real advantage, because I wrote these grants, and again I wrote grants to get these computers. So basically, for the last 3 years, I've had basically a 1-to-1 classroom. I have an advantage too. I teach gifted ed, and I've had usually 10 to 15 students, and every one of my students has a computer when they're in my room. But I pushed that, and I wrote grants to get that, and I wouldn't have been able to write those grants if it wasn't for connections that I made. You should see the grants. I didn't write them. I wrote them, and then Joke was on a bus. I don't know if you guys told you about Joke. She was taking a bus from Wollongong to Sydney. She was sitting here, and we were working on a Google Doc together, writing a grant, and she's saying, no, you need to change this. And then Dean Groom would help me with it. And I wrote this grant, and I didn't win the first one, but I won the second one, and then I won a third one. So I've found a way to get my kids hooked into computers, because to me it isn't about the computer, and it isn't about the program. It's about the computer's ability to connect me to other people, and the computer's ability to connect me to really smart people, and the computer's ability to connect my students to really smart people. I'm kind of going off on it. I should get my soapbox out. I put my soapbox out earlier, because when I start talking about this stuff, I get passionate about it, and I want to get up on a soapbox and say, because to me that's the powers. I can talk to people all over the world that are smart as hell, and I can pick their brains. And what's cool about the people in Second Life and in virtual worlds, they're so willing to share their ideas. And to me, that's what education is all about, is sharing ideas. And the people in Second Life, to me, I don't just connect with them not via Second Life. I connect with them via Twitter now. I'm on G-Talk, and most of the people probably in this room are totally connected, or into connectivism, and probably have a personal learning network. That's been my experience, is the people that are in Second Life are kind of on the cutting edge for the most part.
Jeff,
I'm talking way too much.
No, you're doing great. You're tapping into a lot of good stuff, and I think we're getting a lot of back channeling comments. A lot of them are really agreement. And I think you've tapped into something that seems like it's coming from a lot of different directions, and and it's really bridging that gap. And I think all of us who've worked with students, especially maybe K-12 students, have seen just kids' eyes light up and when they're working with a virtual environment. And we've somehow got to get other people to see that light. And I think we will eventually, but it's a difficult climb. So maybe chat more along those lines. What are you noticing when you work with kids? What are your experiences?
Well, I did. I had several kids doing STEM projects in Minecraft. Because and I had to like almost get the superintendent to okay me going to Minecraft, and they joined the Massively Minecraft Guild. And I don't know how much you guys know about what Joe Kay's doing there, but she's just doing some incredible things. But like I said, I had to call and say, can you open up this port? I want my kids to be doing some stuff with STEM. And I had to connect it to STEM, something that my district is into. My district is into PBL, into scenario-based, or trying to get into PBL and trying to get into scenario-based learning and problem-based learning, and to me, that's what games-based learning kind of covers all that in Quest Atlantis. It doesn't work for everybody, but it sure works for a lot of this generation. But the kids that got into it, and these kids are smart. I mean, and I put in my notes one named Lillian, and there's another one named Dory, a kid named Mitchell, that did this STEM work, and they did some things in Minecraft that just blew my mind. This Lillian she skipped a grade, and because she was just getting bored out of her mind, so she was a grade skipper. But she got into I got her a Minecraft account. I had an extra one because of my camp last year. I said, here, you should try this out. And she joined the guild, and she got into Minecraft. And she has, this is what is so powerful to me, is Joe K. Wollongong. Joanna K., just probably one of the best web designers around, the best just creator of online content around, is working with my students, showing them how to code and do things in Minecraft and build. And she's working with kids all over the world, in Great Britain and in Australia and in New York City, just all over the place, and learning from them and playing and having fun, because you can learn and play and have fun too. But she wanted, and her mom's a little bit mad at me, but she wanted to be a doctor, kind of pushing her that way. But now she wants to be a computer programmer and a coder and a designer. And she did this stuff with redstone in Minecraft, where and redstone is like kind of like electricity. But she built a big computer, a big binary coded computer in Massively Minecraft. And she'll sit and explain it to me. I'm like, I don't even know what she's talking about. She learned, and she did all this stuff and she was researching and reading about binary code, and I'm like, man. And then another student who's InstaBrain there, whose name is Dory, she built a scale model of the Eiffel Tower, and in the Eiffel Tower there's this little room, and she built a little room. And she did all this stuff behind that. And this is stuff that they're not getting a grade for. This is stuff they're doing on their own time, and how much learning happens there just boggles my mind. And it's learning is best when you're immersed and you're into it, and it's what you want to learn. It's like, man, because to me learning is and I put a little bit about addiction and immersion, because there's some real similarities between immersion and addiction. And I know a little bit about addiction for some other things in my life, but when I'm really immersed, and when I was immersed when I first got into Second Life, and when my kids are immersed, and they are so engaged and learning so much during that immersion period. But I think the difference between immersion and addiction is, once you've learned it, I think that you're good to go, and you don't need to keep throwing yourself into it. So.
I think
question?
I think maybe I think what you're hitting on is engagement. maybe versus addiction.
Okay. And you know, and I'm gonna when I did the World of Warcraft thing with the cognitive dissonance, and some of those guys still play that like crazy. I mean, I was so engaged in that too, just the fact that, and it's so rewarding that, and I don't know, because I've heard of this stuff like ruining people's marriages and things like that, and it didn't happen with mine. I mean, I'm happily married and I have 2 kids, but I've heard of people like meet people here and get so engaged and so involved in this stuff that and I can see how that might happen, just because it can be so immersive and so engaging, you know. But I'm very happily married, and I was immersed, and it did take a lot of my time up, but I've learned to find some balance with it, and couples that WoW together stay together. That's good. My wife is never going to play WoW. I made my wife an avatar in Second Life, and it was like, and I had 2 laptops in front of me, and I was in Jocadia messing around with my buddies in Australia, and it's like, hey, there's my wife, and we were just messing around. My wife was kind of laughed about it. She kind of initially got mad at me because when I first got into Second Life, I was like dancing on a table or something, and she's like, "You're dancing? Shit, you won't dance with me in real life. What are you doing dancing there?" You know, and it's kind of cool because socially, I'm kind of an isolator, and I kind of keep to myself. But since I've been in Second Life, it's opened me up a little bit, and it's maybe, I don't know if it's a fear of what other people think of me, or a fear of other people, or whatever. It's really opened me up and kind of allowed me to be myself better. And you know, a lot of gifted kids struggle with these kind of issues, like social things, or being afraid, or afraid of other people, or afraid of showing people who they are. I think that Quest Atlantis, and I think that like Minecraft, and even like Jocadia Grid, I think getting them involved in environments like this kind of allows them to blossom a little bit, and allows them to open up, and because I think there's a barrier here that kind of allows you to be yourself a little bit more than maybe you would otherwise. But I think once you learn to be yourself in this environment, it makes it a little bit easier to be. It's been my experience. It may not be everybody's experience, but it's kind of allowed me to be myself in my classroom and in other areas of my life as well. So Second Life to me has been nothing but a positive impact on my life, you know. I'll stop there, and you can ask me another question.
Yeah, let me jump in here because we've got a few people going here. Let me test my mic here. We got a couple good questions along the way. One was a kind of simple one, maybe, is how old is Joe K? And tell us maybe a little bit more about Joe K. Maybe you can back up for those who don't know.
You
Joe
really
K.
broke out. I don't know if you can type in that question.
Okay. Sorry. Let me see if I can adjust this mic here. Okay. Let me see if I can do this here. Tell us about Joe K. And how old is she? That was one of the questions down there. And the other was, tell us just your experience with Joe K. Tell us what she's doing, because she's doing gangbuster stuff. And for those, you know, some people may not be familiar with her, but maybe give us some background on Joe K. And I think what your comment is about Joe K. and their interactions is really what I think the secret that I try and tell my colleagues is that Second Life is the best social network for educators out there, and you can really kind of push your boundaries. So maybe expand on those concepts, starting with Joe K.
Well, I got up this morning, and I knew I was going to be talking, and I'm doing a Minecraft / Quest Atlantis camp in the middle of July, and so I got onto Minecraft this morning, and she was playing with several kids, and most of the kids have teachers that are pretty progressive as parents, but they made this mob arena, and we were playing this mob arena game, and like we would go to this room, and we would pick I was a knight once, and then you could be a tank, and then you would go down into this arena where these zombies and stuff would come out, it was like a game, and then once you finally they killed you, it was kind of like along the lines of the Hunger Games a little bit. It's like whoever, and you tried to get as many kills as you could and score as many points as you could. And then once you died, then you'd go look at your score and you'd kind of make a plan and do it again. And it's kind of cool because there's a lot of coding and a lot of different design and things that go behind the designing of that mob arena. And it was her and one of those kids did it together. So she's showing these kids in Massively Minecraft how to do this stuff. Like she showed my student Lillian how to operate redstone. I don't even know if Jokei's showing her, but she's just, and she's, you know, she's tirelessly, and she isn't getting paid for this, you know. I think she eventually wants to work into it where it'll start to but she does her regular job where she's designing things and designing wikis and Moodles and things for big universities in Australia for daytime, and then she's trying to watch this big, and some of the teachers and parents are trying to help out, but she's got like 400 kids who have signed up for the guild. And you know, Dean Groom is helping Jokei, and Dean and Jokei are, like I said, they're like to me. When I first met Jokei, it was on like Isti Island, and she was building when it was in San Antonio. That's kind of when I first got into it. She was building, and I'm like, wow, you're cool, because she was the first person I ever saw build, and she is just a extremely talented builder. And she's doing stuff with God, I forget that. She's doing stuff in Jocadia Grid now, and God, what was that guy's name? The Reaction Grid. So it's kind of like Reaction Grid based, so it's Second Life based, and I have a plot of land in there that I've done some stuff with kids in and building and things. But I mean, she to me is like ahead of her time, kind of like Dean Groom is. I mean, those guys will talk to me, and I like when I would talk to her, it was mostly text chat, and she would say this stuff, and I didn't even know what she was talking about, and she just knew so much, and she had such an understanding of so many things about learning and about connectivism that I didn't even know about. And I would I learned what Control A, Control C, Control V meant, because I would paste all those, and I would read them, and I like study what she says, and I don't know if I was weird or something, because I wasn't afraid to approach people and ask them questions, and I could just tell that she was smarter than hell, you know, and she's helped me, and like I said, she helped me write those grants, and she just knew she knew what to say about 21st century learners to get people in Montana to give me money to buy computers, you know, somebody in Australia, and that's all a result of me. And she showed me about Google Docs and about wiki spaces and about basically. And then Dean Groom is like an expert in educational design, and he showed me about developing a good project-based learning unit. And now I developed this unit called, and I'm going to type in just so you can see kind of the stuff that they showed me how to do that I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. My students like published books based on, based on themes they found in Animal Farm, and they published them on iTunes, and we published them on iTunes. It was a lot of work on my part to get them published, but it was all stuff that I learned, and those were our final projects, was getting those books published. And I environments, and this is special interest group virtual environments. A virtual environment isn't just a place where you have an avatar. To me, a virtual environment can be a wiki space. It can be a Prezi now. I don't know if you've seen Prezi, but you can have 5 or 6 people working on a Prezi. They have little tiny avatars, and I've had my kids doing that too. Twitter to me is a virtual environment. My ability to connect to, I mean, I'm in contact with Dean Groom on a daily basis, you know, and we're good friends now. And most of it's we screw around a lot and have fun, but you know, that's when learning happens, you know. And like I said, Dean's actually bringing his family here now, we're going to take him to Glacier Park and go camping, and then we're going to take him to Yellowstone Park, and then we're going to meet in Disneyland, and we've become really close friends. We met in Washington D.C. to go to a conference after I met him in my family went to Australia, met all these people face to face, and the connections and the relationships that I've developed online, like with Scott Merrick and with all these people, you know, they're real relationships, you know, and I think a lot of teachers don't get that. They don't think you can develop a relationship with somebody until you meet them face to face, but I don't believe that anymore. I think you can develop a relationship with somebody on Twitter, a friendship, a professional, powerful, strong relationship with somebody on Twitter without ever seeing them. Because to me, relationships are not a physical thing. Relationships are, I mean, because this isn't physical. I mean, this is my cartoon talking to you, you know, and I might become friends with one of you, be based on what I say, or some of you might say, hey, I'm going to follow that guy on Twitter or something. And then we might connect, or you might learn something from me, because my friend Dean, I said, why are you sharing? And I say this to Joke too. I said, why do you share all this crap with me? Why are you so nice to me? Because I didn't get that. And they said, what they said to me is, they said, pay it forward. They said, when somebody who really wants help or really wants you, you offer that to them. And that's kind of why I try to share my stuff with people, because they shared way more. They've helped me way more than I could ever help anybody else, because I'm such a better teacher. I feel like they have, you know, and maybe they haven't, but I really feel like I'm a better person because of how much they help me.
You've mentioned Dean Groom's name a few times. Can you tell us a little bit about his work? I know I've seen him quite a bit and seen him along my social networks, but can you talk a little bit about his work and maybe expound a little bit about the relationship you have with him?
He did a lot of, I mean, like I said, he was doing stuff with Nings and doing stuff with project-based learning before it got big, before they had all this push. And I don't know if the push is big in other places to do PBL and how rigorous it should be, but he was doing that stuff and engaging kids in project-based learning like before everybody else. And he works at the University Macquarie. I think his title is like educational designer or something. He teaches teachers, and he helped me. And I threw that NMS Utopia wiki in there where we published those books. It was kind of cool because he did a webinar with my students, and they presented their stories to him in Australia. It was kind of cool because my supervisor came in during that time. My principal came in, and it was like, and he pulled a bunch of teachers in. I think Scott Merrick might even have come to that for a little while, and some other teachers. And I think Thunder came, Kim Harrison came to that, and he's the one that designed it all. And I just said okay, and then I kind of put my touch to it, but he designed all that, the whole unit, or a lot of the unit for me, and then I just did it. And like I said, the kids were so engaged, and they were so, and they weren't into the stuff that came out of the textbook. They were into the stuff that was the project-based learning stuff, or the higher level stuff that he designed. He gave me all these Dean Groom writing activities, and he like I said, he explains things to me, and he shows me how to do things, and he shared so much with me. And I think sometimes I get on their nerves a little bit because I'm saying, how do I do this, or what do I do to make this better, or, you know, and I guess I don't do that as much as I used to, but I still will do it every once in a while. And they're like, leave me alone. But like I said, he's like, both he and Joke to me are like ahead of their time. You know, I think they have these ideas in their head that are, and you know, and that's been true, like about with Minecraft and with project-based learning. They have these ideas in their head, and then they share them with you, and then 3 or 4 years later, they're saying, "Oh God, everybody should do this." And Kim Harris and I were talking about this the other day. It kind of torques you off. It's like you say, like 4 years ago, "God, you guys should try this. It's the coolest thing ever." And then 3 years later, somebody else will say it, and they're like, "Jesus Christ, I told you that 3 years ago, and you're telling me now, and it's a good idea? Why wasn't it a good idea when I said it?" So, and like Dean Groom's coming here, and I've met him, and we're good friends. And what's kind of cool, what attracted him to me, is that he knew I was from Montana, and when he was 8 years old, he told me that he read a book about Montana, and he's always wanted to come here, but he's never been able to. And he's always wanted to like move here and come to Montana. And he's going to be here next Wednesday with his family, and we're going to hang and we're going to have a really good time.
So is Dean from Australia? And if and maybe tell me your opinion, maybe, or if you've been to Australia, do you think Australia is, I mean, the reason that these educators, it's like Joe K, have taken off, do you feel that there's maybe an environment that lets them explore creative learning technologies, and maybe is that what we're not doing well here in the States?
Oh, I think that just environments like Second Life have allowed us to connect, because I think that they're the exception there too. Just like I think probably several of the people that are sitting here as cartoons are the exception. Like Maggie or Peggy Sheehy. She's incredible, and I've met and talked with her. She's done incredible things and cutting edge things. And she isn't the rule; she's the exception. And I think that Dean and Joe K. I don't think there's any more of them in Australia than there are here, or maybe there is per capita or something. But I think that they have the same kind of roadblocks with getting teachers on board with it as we do. I just think that the fact that we can connect with them now, unlike ever before, to me is the powerful thing. Is I can connect to Dean Groom, whereas 4 years ago, 5 or 6, or maybe I could have. Maybe there was a way to do it 6 or 7 years ago. I think they had I think they had chat rooms, I think, before. But I guess people are just starting to figure out how powerful. To me, it's about connecting and connectivism, and I think I'd read a lot of George Simmons' work about connectivism and connectivist ideas. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. And those are most of the times I have conversations with Dean. That's what's cool, is that I can connect with Dean, because there's knotheads that aren't ever going to change the way they teach. And our whole educational system is based on the Industrial Revolution, and putting kids through these things, and we aren't in the Industrial Revolution anymore. And there's a lot of teachers that are still approaching education that way. I mean, education needs to move into the digital age. It needs to move into I can learn crap with my iPhone, and if I can learn crap with my iPhone, why do I need a teacher? I think we need to teach kids how to learn with their iPhone, and not be the know-it-all, because there's no way in hell you could be the know-it-all these days. You can't. There's no way I can know everything. I mean, when I'm working with Wikispaces with my kids, they're starting to teach me stuff by the end of the quarter, by the beginning of the quarter, some of them now, of different things I can do with wikis, because there's no way. I mean, with all this information and all the new stuff that's coming at you, you can't be an expert in you can't be an expert in anything. You have to, especially if you're a teacher. To me, you really can't, because your computer's a better expert than anybody. If you really want to know little pieces of knowledge or something, you can just Google it.
I think we've kind of come full circle in our conversation back to maybe the professional development piece, and how do we get others to buy into what we're seeing. I mean, I've often described it as, we're on the top of the mountaintop looking over the other side, and we see the valleys of fruit and honey, and we see the great stuff, and we're trying to get everybody else to follow with us, but they're still kind of down on that other side. Tell us your future.
I think we just take the kids, man.
I agree. I think the kids' voices, I think, need to be that voice to kind of lead teachers over the side. So I think that's a great point. But tell us just give us your honest kind of take on where you see the future of virtual environments. How long is it going to take before we can get people to the other side of the mountain?
When I first got into Second Life, I was thinking, oh my God, people are going to figure this out, and everybody's going to be in Second Life within a year, and everybody's going to come, and we're going to all be going to ISTE and having these big conferences, and and I thought there would be a lot more you know, and there's still things like this, but I think it's, I mean, is it your experience? And you probably know better. I mean, things have slowed down in Second Life a little bit. Is that true?
They have, and some people were making mention to it earlier in the back channeling about Linden Labs were kind of, I don't think they were particularly welcoming to education, and when they got rid of the education discount and that sort of thing. And I think when Philip Linden really left, I think it took a lot of the steam out of education. And let's face it, there's still that bohemian component to Second Life that is not good for education. That's not good for younger kids for sure. So I think there are other options. There is Jocadia, there is OpenSim, things coming down the pike. So maybe talk about
This
other
this is what
options.
I think the big block is to it is there's a saying that I really relish, that I think is an awesome saying, and and I think it was by a guy named Herb Spencer. It's contempt prior to investigation will lead a man into everlasting ignorance. And I think a lot of people, they hear Second Life and they hear virtual worlds and they hear games based learning, and before they get into exploring it and looking into it, they contempt it and they say, well, I'm not going to do that. And they contempt it before they really look into it and see its value. And quite honestly, I don't know how you get around that. um, I think, and because I know that this is to me, Second Life and these virtual environments are social media. It connects me to people, and the future is going to be, in my mind, it's going to be the successful people, the people that succeed, are going to be people that learn to connect to other people. And if I want my students to be successful, I want them to know how to connect to other people. And I believe Minecraft is a good way to show them that. And I used Lillian as an example. She's getting taught by Joke about binary code, and other students about binary code, and about how to and somebody's would learn how to build a mob arena. And building a mob arena in Minecraft, there's got to be a ton of stuff that you don't even, I mean, that those kids are building. Like, oh my God, you know. So to me, it isn't. And there'll be other games, and there'll be other things, and other things will get big. It's about the things, and about Second Life and Jocadia. It's about this thing's ability to connect me to others, and my ability as an educator to get my kids to use this computer somehow to connect them to someone that can teach them, or someone that they can teach, someone that they can put in their network, to me, to help them be a better person and a better learner. It's about connectivism. And I don't know what it's going to morph into, or how it's going to change, or what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years. I just know, I believe that social media is going to, and I think education is just seems to be the last thing to grasp onto anything. I mean, we should be using social media in the classroom, using Twitter, and we should be using all this stuff, because we should be teaching our kids to connect to others, because that's how you learn, and that's how you be a better person. That's how you, to me, connecting to others is the key to everything. So, and I don't know if that answers what the future is, but that's my best answer.
Well, you brought some really great, I think, topics, and you really, I think, kind of summarized what a lot of us have been thinking and feeling. One of the earlier points you had talked about, let me see if I can summarize it like this. I've often said, I think some of us are maybe Lego kids when we were younger, and were able to pick up a box of Legos and create a house, a building, a structure, an entire city, and totally immerse ourselves in that when we were kids. And I'm wondering if that's, as far as adults, that's why we get things like Second Life and virtual environments. Do you think there's some type of learning style? Maybe we were all introverts. I don't know. What do you think along those lines? Just maybe because some people I can talk to about virtual worlds and virtual environment, and they're not going to get it. I mean, and they're not going to see it. They're looking at it in completely black and white. Um, those
I think
things?
I think the people that are in Second Life are like a little quirky, So uh, and and kind of tend to be maybe a little bit. I don't know if this is true. It's true for me, and it's true for my friend Dean. Uh, kind of isolate a little bit, maybe. I don't know, but and and I've been teaching gifted ed for the last 3 years, and I really I noticed some similarities between a lot of the people I meet in Second Life and my students, the ones that are like Lillian and like Mitch and Daniel and some of the kids that just get into this and get engaged by this. I just think it's and I don't know if there's a tie between this and giftedness. I don't. I know they've done some work with Asperger's, high functioning Asperger's, and that there's different levels of that. I believe there might be some kind of Asperger's type tendencies in us that maybe aren't in others. Because you're right. I mean, I'm the same way. If I can talk to some people about this, about Second Life.
I think we lost your voice.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, just for a second. Can you repeat that last sentence, maybe?
Um, yeah, like you said, some people. Can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Uh, some people are kind of like, yeah, that sounds cool, and then they'll get into it. I haven't got it. I mean, I've had a couple of people that are kind of into it. Did you hear me talk a little bit about it, Asperger's?
Yeah, yeah, I heard that.
And I think there might be some little weird, quirky thing about us that maybe other people don't have, or people that really get immersed in this and its ability to connect me to other people. I know Scott Merrick, and he's quirky as hell. Hope he heard me.
Scott, quirky? No.
No, but I don't know, and I like I said, I think there's a because my gifted kids, I mean, they get into this. The ones that and I have kids that aren't that probably shouldn't have been identified, but I got some kids that are quirky and like just so goddamn intelligent it makes you want to puke. And they're the kind of kids that really get into this stuff, and they're the kind of kids that like Lillian building that binary computer in Minecraft. And I don't want to. It's kind of hard for me to say because it's like, well, geez, if I'm saying that that gifted people really get into this, then I'm saying, God, I must be really gifted or quirky or whatever. But I think if the people in this room are the people that are sitting here as cartoons were to take an IQ test, I bet we'd all be over 130. Are the ones that really get into this. Or we'd be up there. I think there's a level of intelligence, just because I've seen it in my kids, and I've been teaching the gifted kids for a while, and I don't know that quirkiness or giftedness or whatever you want to call it. But to me, I love to be immersed. I love to learn, and I think the people here love to learn, and this is such a wonderful way to learn. And I think we get that, and I wish other people would get it. But like I said earlier, I believe that contempt prior to investigation is going to keep people ignorant. Open-mindedness is that Joe's saying that is a great term. You need to be open-minded, and I think people get set in the way they are going to teach, and they're going to do it that way because they don't have the time. And we don't have time. But you know what? You're doing a disservice to your students if you don't somehow find the time to start incorporating this stuff to get your kids connected to others.
So tell us, before we wrap up, what questions or what are your projects coming up? What are your goals for next year along the virtual environment line, or just technology and
Well,
connecting people?
they actually cut the gifted program in the middle schools. So I am actually moving back. My first job was teaching adult education, and I'm going to go back to teaching that at the MSU at the Montana State University College of Technology. It's still through the school district, but I'm really looking forward to it. I was allowed to take my 11 computers with me that I won via grants, and I think I'm going to have a lot more freedom to do things with social media that I didn't have, and I kind of bent the rules, and I was on the cutting edge, and I probably did some things that I don't know that might have been against FERPA or some. I think there's laws and stuff, but I showed my stuff to my supervisors, and they said, "Oh, cool." But I think I'm going to have some freedom to, like, it'd be nice and I think I'll be able to do some stuff into Acadia Grid along the lines with math, and because I'm going to have adults, and I'm going to be working with some gifted kids and in some after-school programs as well. I'm going to continue. I'm doing a Minecraft camp in July, where we're gonna. I'm not sure how we're gonna run that, but I did a Quest Atlantis camp and a Minecraft camp last summer, and I don't know how much you know about what's going on with Quest Atlantis, but they've totally redesigned it, and they call it Atlantis Remix now, and the interface is just absolutely incredible. I mean, it's and I don't and like I said, there's going to be a lot. The learning curve is going to be real steep with that again. So hopefully I'll be able to continue working with some of the kids because I developed some real strong, powerful relationships with a lot of my students. So I hope to continue working with them. I've been asked by several of my parents of my gifted students if I'd continue to do something with them after school, or do some kind of work with them after school. And when Dean's here, I'm gonna kind of pick his brain about because I think I've been thinking about vertical education, because right now in gifted ed, it's like I said, it's based on the Industrial Revolution. I think instead of a because what happens is in gifted ed in my district anyway, a folder follows the kid, and then he goes to a different teacher, and a folder follows the kid, and then the teacher spends the year maybe developing a relationship with the kid and maybe not developing a relationship with the kid. To me, especially with those gifted kids, it would be better to have a teacher follow the kid that has developed a relationship with them, because like I said, I developed some really powerful relationships with some of those kids, and I know how to help them get to their potential or reach their potential. And I think that's lost when you move them from teacher to teacher through an industrial revolutionized based form of education. I think the way we do education needs to change, especially with gifted kids. But then it's the first thing that gets cut. Because all the focus is on getting test scores up, and you don't need to worry about the kids' test scores that are gifted, because they're all getting really good scores.
Serena asked, how is it different? And I think she's maybe referring to your new assignment for this year.
To be working with adults. So it's like I couldn't tell kids to follow me on Twitter or tweet me if you have a question. I did. Here's what I did with my kids, though. I said, hey, you know what? If you want me to check something that you're doing, send me a wiki mail. And I still got kids sending me wiki mails. So it's kind of the same thing, and I've worked my way around it, because I think if a kid is doing something on the weekend, they want me to look at it, I can look at it on my iPhone. I just say, send me a link. But now I'll be able to say, hey, or I can make a Facebook group and say, here, join this Facebook social media, that I wouldn't have that freedom to do since I'm working with adults. They're adults that struggle, but I think I'll be able to do some things that maybe I wasn't able to do before. And I'm going to be in a university environment, and I'm going to be teaching some college courses, and it's going to probably put my foot in the door up there a little bit. And like I said, I'm gonna do something to continue working with some of those kids that I developed relationships with. They're gifted. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. Some kind of after school program, or they wanted me to keep tutoring them or keep them working on projects, or maybe just have a Minecraft group or something where we go play Minecraft and build stuff in Minecraft. I mean, some of the stuff there. I mean, I was looking at in Massively Minecraft today. I mean, they built a, you know what Panem is? Panem in Hunger Games. They built a big Panem thing, and they play Hunger Games in there. They built a big Quidditch from Harry Potter. They built a big Quidditch stadium. They're building models of the Titanic. If you looked at my wiki, there's a model of a Minecraft world on there. A Minecraft world is as big as the planet of Uranus.
Serena was actually asking about how Quest Atlantis is now different. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes?
It was Active Worlds based before, and it's still that way right now currently. But they put it on another platform. They won like a $2.5 million Gates Foundation grant, and like I said, the new interface is totally different, and I'm going to be teaching a little bit about that, because they sent it out to some of the buoys what it looked like, and they just had a little kind of a prototype of what it was going to look like, and it had a mission. I'm trying to think of like, I don't know if you've seen, God, I'm trying to think of some games that there's a game called Circus or a carnival game that's like on the Wii, where they build avatars, and it's a little bit more like that. Yeah, third grade I think is a little bit young. I think fourth grade is usually when they have the people start. Serena had some students working in Quest Atlantis in third grade. Yeah, I had 7th and 8th grade kids, and we did the Ingolstadt unit, the persuasive writing unit, and you know, that's kind of what they'd say, but that they didn't like the writing, but they wrote some powerfully good essays, you know, just some incredible essays, and I think it's easy to adjust it to their level. And I just put in that link to Atlantis Remixed, and you can check out that page. Did I put my wiki link in there too?
Is that the WordPress one? Is that WordPress?
Hold on, let me see.
I just clicked on it behind you. I don't know if that's it. Teacher.
There's my notes. There's my notes, and here I'll put my blog in there too. There's my blog. Here's my classroom website. Do I got to put the HTTP first? Oh, .org. Did I put .com? Shoot. Sorry. There's my blog, and there's my classroom website. There's links to all the wikis that my kids use. I think wikis are extremely powerful. And so what was different? Atlantis Remixed, like I said, there's a video. There's actually a video on there that shows what it looks like now. I don't know if you've seen what it looks like now. But there's a video that shows what it looks like now versus what it will look like starting. It comes out. They're planning to release the new version in January of 2013. So it's going to look a lot different, and you can, like I said, there's a video. I think, let me check out that website. There's actually a video of what the you'll find that video if you go to that. If you go to that link, you'll find that video. So.
Okay, Jeff. Well, that brings us to our close of the session, and I want to thank you. I think you think like I said, some feelings that all of us are going through as we try and make our way, again, seeing over the mountaintop to seeing the great stuff. But so you really kind of encapsulate it for us, and I hope people will connect with you, and wish you great success,
Good.
and hope you come back.
Like I said, if anybody had any other questions, you can sure tweet me. My Twitter is teacherman79, and thanks for letting me talk. I hope I made sense.
You made great sense. I put this awesome little quote behind me that I found on Pinterest, believe it or not. It was kind of a fun one. Kind of reminded me of the Mad Hatter. But all right, folks. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. For those of you who are interested in ISTE and you're going to the ISTE 2012 conference in San Diego, I'd love to see you. There is a virtual environmental playground. If you can make it over there, you'll see Scott and Kay and the whole happy bunch. Me, of course, will be running a playground and doing all kinds of fun stuff. Behind me is the schedule. And if you can't make it to San Diego, you can just come here to the SIGVE building, and Grid Jumper and Blue Barker are setting up some stuff for us to see some great presentations. And you can see right behind my little couch here is the presentation board. And we've got Minnie Ladores, we've got Kay, who's here. I hope she's still here. We've got Bron Stuckey doing 2 presentations, one on Minecraft, one on Quest Atlantis, of course. We've got Scott, who's going to talk about Kitely. We've got Gord Holden, who's doing a bunch of stuff in Active Worlds in Canada. And then we've got Lucas Gillespie rounding things out with Minecraft. And Lucas does a lot of great stuff. And then we've got our Machinima night, which will be the following evening on Tuesday night. And again, you can come and see that. And we've got next door will be our Machinima place, which is No Clues place. We're going to have some Machinima. So if you can't make it to San Diego, come on over here. We've got lots of activities for you to see on Monday, June 25th from 8 to 4, Second Life time. We've even got a Birds of a Feather session. We'll try and get people to chit-chat with us. So, and then we'll have Machinima on Tuesday evening. So lots of great events going on. So please join us, whether you're in San Diego or here. We love to have the conversation. And again, many thanks to Grid Jumper, who is our producer. She puts together all kinds of stuff and sends tweets out and puts everything together for us. And she's got a great blog as well. Check out Grid Jumper stuff. And thanks to Scott.